24 hours a day. Meditation by Hazelden. Read by the People's Computer Man, Jim Janis. Editor's note. This book is compiled by a member of the group at Daytona Beach, Florida. The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions are reprinted with the permission of Alcoholics Anonymous, World Services, Inc. Permission to reprint the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions does not mean that the Alcoholics Anonymous has reviewed or approved the contents of this publication, nor that AA agrees with the views expressed herein. The views expressed herein are solely those of the author. AA is a program of recovery from alcohol. Use of the 12 steps and 12 traditions in connection with programs and activities which are patterned after AA, but which address other problems, does not simply imply otherwise. Forward. 24 hours a day is intended for members of Alcoholics Anonymous as a help in their program of living one day at a time. It is designed for those who want to start each day with a few minutes of thought, meditation, and prayer. These daily readings contain most of the material used in the booklet for drunks only and other AA literature. Also, some passages from the Big Book, Alcoholics Anonymous. As a basis for the meditations in this book, the author has used many passages from the book God, Calling by Two Listeners, edited by A.J. Russell. Permission to use the universal spiritual thoughts expressed in this book without direct quotations has been granted by Dodd, Mead and Company, New York City. The author hopes that these daily readings may help members of Alcoholics Anonymous to find the power they need to stay sober each 24 hours. If we don't take that first drink today, we'll never take it, because it's always today. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the realities and veridities of existence, the bliss of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of power. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Sanskrit proverb by Kalidasa, Indian poet and playwright, 4th century AD. January 1st. AA thought for the day. When I came into AA, was I a desperate person? Did I have a soul sickness? Was I so sick of myself and my way of living that I couldn't stand looking at myself in the mirror? Was I ready for AA? Was I ready to try anything that would help me to get sober and to get over my soul sickness? Should I ever forget the condition I was in? Meditation for the day. In the new year, I will live one day at a time. I will make each day one of preparation for better things ahead. and I will not dwell on the past or the future, only on the present. I will bury every fear of failure, all thoughts of unkindness and bitterness, all my dislikes and resentments, and my sense of failure, my disappointments in others and in myself, my gloom and my despondency. I will leave all these things buried and go forward in this new year into a new life. Prayer for the day. I pray that God will guide me one day at a time. In the new year, I pray that for each day, God will supply the wisdom and the strength that I need. January 2nd, AA thought for the day. What makes AA work? The first thing is to have a revulsion against myself and my way of living. Then I must admit that I was helpless, that alcohol had me licked, and I couldn't do anything about it. The next thing is to honestly want to quit the old life. Then I must surrender my life to a higher power, put my drinking problems in his hands, and leave it there. After these things are done, I should attend meetings regularly for fellowship and sharing. I should also try to help other alcoholics. Am I doing these things? Meditation for the day. You are so made that you can only carry the weight of 24 hours, no more. If you weigh yourself down with the years behind and the days ahead, your back will break. God has promised to help with the burdens of the day only. If you are foolish enough to gather again that burden of the past and carry it, then indeed you cannot expect God to help you bear it. So forget that which lies behind you and breathe in the blessing of each new day. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may realize that for good or bad, past days have ended. I pray that I may face each new day, the coming 24 hours, with hope and courage. January 3rd, AA thought for the day. When I came into AA, I learned what an alcoholic was, and then I applied this knowledge to myself to see if I was an alcoholic. When I was convinced that I was an alcoholic, I admitted it openly. Since then, I have been learning to live accordingly. Have I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Have I applied the knowledge gained to myself? Have I admitted openly that I am an alcoholic? Am I ready to admit that at any time when I can be of help? Meditation for the day. I will be renewed. I will be remade in this. In this I need God's help. His Spirit shall flow through me, and in flowing through me, it shall sweep away all the bitter past. I will take heart. The way will open for me. Each day will unfold something good. As long as I am trying to live the way I believe God wants me to live. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may be taught, just as a child would be taught. I pray that I may never question God's plans, but accept them gladly. January 4th, AA thought for the day. Have I admitted that I'm an alcoholic? Have I swallowed my pride and admitted that I was different from ordinary drinkers? Have I accepted the fact that I must spend the rest of my life without liquor? Have I any more reservations, any idea in the back of my mind that someday, somehow, I'll be able to drink safely? Am I absolutely honest with myself and with other people? Have I taken an inventory of myself and admitted the wrong I have done? Have I come clean with my friends? Have I tried to make it up to them for the way I have treated them? Meditation for the day. I will believe that fundamentally all is well. Good things will happen to me. I believe that God cares for me and will provide for me. I will not try to plan ahead. I know that the way will unfold step by step. I will leave tomorrow's burden to God because He is the great burden bearer. He only expects me to carry my one day's share. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may not try to carry the burden of the universe from my shoulders. I pray that I may be satisfied to do my share each day. January 5th. AA thought for the day. Have I turned to a higher power for help? Do I believe that each man or woman I see in AA is a demonstration of the power of God to change a human being from a drunkard into a sober, useful citizen? Do I believe that this higher power can keep me from drinking? Am I living one day at a time? Do I ask God to give me the power to stay sober for each 24 hours? Do I attend AA meetings regularly? Meditation for the day. I believe that God's presence brings peace, and that peace, like a quiet flowing river, will cleanse all irritants away. In these quiet times, God will teach me how to rest my nerves. I will not be afraid. I will learn how to relax. When I am relaxed, God's strength will flow into me. I will be at peace. Prayer for the day. I pray for the peace which passes all understanding. I pray for that peace which the world can neither give nor take away. January 6th. AA thought for the day. Keeping sober is the most important thing in my life. The most important decision I have ever made was by decision to give up drinking. I am convinced that my whole life depends on not taking that first drink. Nothing in the world is more important to me as my own sobriety. Everything I have in my whole life depends on that one thing. Can I afford to forget this ever, even for 1 minute? Meditation for the day. I will discipline myself. I will do this disciplining now. I will turn out all useless thoughts. I know that the goodness of my life is a necessary foundation for its usefulness. I will welcome this training, for without it, God cannot give me His power. I believe that this power is a mighty power when it is used the right way. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may face and accept whatever discipline is necessary. I pray that I may be fit to receive God's power in my life. January 7th, AA thought for the day. When the temptation comes, as it does sometimes to all of us, I will say to myself, no, my whole life depends on not taking that drink, and nothing in the world can make me do it. Besides, I have promised that higher power that I wouldn't do it. I know that God doesn't want me to drink, and I won't break my promise to God. I've given up on my right to drink, and it's not my decision any longer. Have I made the choice once and for all so that there's no going back on it? Meditation for the day. In silence comes God's meaning to the heart. I cannot judge when it enters the heart. I can only judge by results. God's word is spoken to the secret places of my heart, and in some hour of temptation, I find that word and realize its value for the first time. When I need it, I find it there. Thy Father, who seeth in secret, shall reward thee openly. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may see God's meaning in my life. I pray that I may gladly accept what God has to teach me. January 8th. AA thought for the day. Everyone who comes into AA knows from bitter experience that he or she cannot drink. I know that drinking has been the cause of most of my major troubles, or has made them worse. Now that I have found a way out, I will hang on to AA with both hands. St. Paul once said that nothing in the world, neither powers nor principalities, life or death, could separate him from the love of God. Once I have given my drinking problem to God, should anything in the world separate me from my sobriety? Meditation for the day. I know that my new life will not be immune from difficulties, but I will have peace even in difficulties. I know that serenity is the result of faithful, trusting acceptance in God's will, even in the midst of difficulties. St. Paul said, our light afflictions, which are but for a moment, work for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may welcome difficulties. I pray that they may test the strength and build my character. January 9th. AA thought for the day. When we were drinking, most of us had no real faith in anything. We may have said that we believed in God, but we didn't act as though we did. We never really honestly asked God to help us, and we never really accepted his help. To us, faith looked like helplessness. But when we came into AA, we began to have faith in God. And we found that our faith gave us the strength we needed to overcome drinking. Have I learned that there is strength in faith? Meditation for the day. I will have faith no matter what may befall me. I will be patient, even in the midst of troubles. I will not fear the strain of life because I believe that God knows just what I can bear. I will look towards the future with confidence. I know that God will not ask me to bear anything that could overcome or destroy me. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may put this day in the hands of God. I pray for faith, so that nothing will upset me or weaken my determination to stay sober. January 10. AA thought for the day. When we were drinking, most of us were full of pride and selfishness. We believed we could handle our own affairs, even though we were making a mess of our lives. We were very stubborn and didn't like to take advice. We resented being told what to do. To us, humility looked like weakness. But when we came into AA, we began to be humble, and we found out that humility gave us the power we needed to overcome drinking. Have I learned that there is power in humility? Meditation for the day. I will come to God in faith, and He will give me a new way of life. This new way of life will alter my whole existence. The words I speak, the influence I have, they will spring from the life within me. I see how important is the work of a person who has this new way of life. The words and the example of such a person can have a wide influence for good in the world. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may learn the principles of the good life. I pray that I may meditate upon them and work at them, because they are eternal. January 11th, AA, thought for the day. When we were drinking, most of us never thought of helping others. We liked to buy drinks for people because that made us feel like big shots. But we only used others for our own pleasure. To really go out and try to help someone who needed help never occurred to us. To us, helping others looked like a sucker's game. But when we came into AA, we began to try to help others. And we found out that by helping others, it made us happy and also helped us to stay sober. Have I learned that there is a happiness in helping others? Meditation for the day. I will pray only for strength, and that God's strength will be done. I will use God's unlimited store of strength for my needs. I will seek God's will for me. I will strive for consciousness of God's presence, for He is the light of the world. I have become a pilgrim who needs only marching orders and strength and guidance for this day. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may seek God's guidance day by day. I pray that I may strive to abide in God's presence. January 12th, AA thought for the day. The longer we're in AA, the more natural this way of life seems. Our old drinking lives were a very unnatural way of living. Our present sober lives are the most natural way we could ever possibly live. During the early years of our drinking, our lives weren't so different from the lives of a lot of other people. But as we gradually become problem drinkers, our lives became more and more unnatural. Do I realize now that the things I did were far from natural? Meditation for the day. I will say thank you to God for everything, even the seeming trials and worries. I will strive to be grateful and humble. My whole attitude towards the higher power will be one of gratitude. I will be glad for the things I have received. I will pass on what God reveals to me. I believe that more truths will flow in as I go along in the new way of life. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may be grateful for the things I have received and do not deserve. I pray that this gratitude will make me truly humble. January 13th, AA thought for the day. When we were drinking, we were living an unnatural life, physically and mentally. We were pushing out our bodies by loading them with alcohol. We didn't eat enough, and we ate the wrong things. We didn't get enough sleep or the right kind of rest. We were ruining ourselves physically. We had an alcoholic obsession, and we could not imagine life without alcohol. We kept imagining all kinds of crazy things about ourselves and about other people. We were ruining ourselves mentally. Since I came into AA, am I getting better physically and mentally? Meditation for the day. I believe that my life is being refined, like gold in a crucible. Gold does not stay in the crucible, only until it is refined. I will never despair or be despondent. I now have friends who long for me to conquer. If I should err or fail, it would cause pain and disappointment to them. I will keep trying to live a better life. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may always call on God's strength while the gold of my life is being refined. I pray that I may see it through with God's help. January 14th, AA thought for the day. When we first came into AA, a sober life seemed strange. We wondered what life could possibly be like without ever taking a drink. At first, a sober life seemed unnatural. But the longer we're in AA, the more natural this way of life seems. And now we know that the life we're living in AA, the sobriety, the fellowship, the faith in God, and the trying to help each other is the most natural way we could possibly live. Do I believe it's the way God wants me to live? Meditation for the day. I will learn to overcome myself because every blow to selfishness is used to shape the real, eternal, unperishable me. As I overcome myself, I gain that power which God releases into my soul, and I too will be victorious. It is not the difficulties of life that I have to conquer so much as my own selfishness. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may obey God and walk with Him and listen to Him. I pray that I may strive to overcome my own selfishness. January 15th. AA thought for the day. The AA program is a way of life. It's a way of living, and we have to learn to live the program if we're going to stay sober. The 12 steps in the book are like guideposts. They point the direction in which we have to go. But all members of the group have to find their own best way to live the program. We don't do it exactly alike. Whether by quiet times in the morning, meetings, working with others, or spreading the word, We have to learn to live the program. Has the AA way become my regular, natural way of living? Meditation for the day. I will relax and not get tense. I will have no fear because everything will work out in the end. I will learn soul balance and poise in a vacillating, changing world. I will claim God's power and use it, because if I do not use it, it will be withdrawn. As long as I get back to God and replenish my strength after each task, no work can be too much. I pray that I may relax and that God's strength will be given to me. I pray that I may subject my will to God's will and be free from all tenseness. January 16. AA thought for the day. The AA program is more a way of building a new life than just a way of getting over drinking. Because in AA, we don't just stop drinking. We did that plenty of times in the old days when we went on the wagon. And of course, we always started to drink again. Because we were only waiting for the time when we could fall off. Once we've gotten sober through the AA program, we started going uphill. In our drinking days, we were going downhill, getting worse and worse. Either go up or down. Am I going uphill and getting better and better? Meditation for the day. I will try to obey God's will day in and day out in the wilderness plains as well as in the mountaintops of experience. It is in the daily strivings that perseverance counts. I believe that God is the Lord of little things, the divine controller of little happenings. I will persevere in this new way of life. I know that nothing in the day is too small to be part of God's scheme. Prayer for the day. I pray that the little stones that I put in the mosaic of my life may make a worthwhile pattern. I pray that I may persevere and so find harmony and beauty. January 17. AA thought for the day. It doesn't do much good to come to meetings only once in a while and to sit around hoping to get something out of the program. That's all right at first, but it won't help us for very long. Sooner or later, we have to get into action by coming to meetings regularly, by giving a personal witness of our experience with alcohol, and by trying to help other alcoholics. Building a new life takes all the energy that we used to spend on drinking. And by spending at least as much time and effort on the new life that I'm trying to build in AA. Meditation for the day. With God's help, I will build a protective screen around myself which will keep out all evil thoughts. I will fashion it out of my attitude towards God and my attitude towards other people. When one worrying or impatient thought enters my mind, I will put it out at once. I know that love and trust are the solvents for worry and frets of life. I will use them to form a protective screen around me. Prayer for the day. I pray that frets and impatience and worry may not corrode my protective screen. against all evil thoughts. I pray that I may banish all these from my life. January 18th, AA Thought for the Day. The new life can't be built in a day. We have to take the program slowly, a little at a time. Our subconscious minds have to be re-educated. We have to learn to think differently. We have to get used to sober thinking instead of alcoholic thinking. Anyone who tries it knows that the old alcoholic thinking is apt to come back to us when we least expect it. Building a new life is a slow process, but it can be done if we rely and follow the AA program. Am I building a new life on the foundation of sobriety? Meditation for the day. I will pray daily for faith, for it is God's gift. On faith alone depends the answers for my prayers. God gives it to me in response to my prayers, because it is a necessary weapon for me to possess for the overcoming of all adverse conditions and the accomplishment of all good in my life. Therefore, I will work at strengthening my faith. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may so think and live as to feed my faith in God. I pray that my faith may grow because with God's power, faith becomes available to me. January 19th, AA Thought for the Day. On the foundation of sobriety, we can build a life of honesty, unselfishness, faith in God, and love of our fellow human beings. We'll never fully reach these goals, but the adventure of building that kind of a life is so much better than the merry-go-round of our old drinking life that there's no comparison. We come into AA to get sober, but if we stay long enough, we learn a new way of living. We become honest with ourselves and with other people. We learn to think more about others and rely less about ourselves. And we learn to rely on the constant help of a higher power. Am I living the way of honesty, unselfishness, and faith? Meditation for the day. I believe that God had already seen my heart's needs before I cried to Him, and before I was conscious of those needs myself. I believe that God was already preparing the answer. God does not have to be petitioned with sighs and tears and much speaking before He reluctantly looses the desired help. He has already anticipated my every want and need. I will try to see this as His plans unfold in my life. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may understand my real wants and needs. I pray that my understanding of those needs and wants may help to bring the answer to them. January 20, AA Thought for the Day. In AA, we're all through with the lying, hangovers, remorse, and wasting money. When we were drinking, we were only half alive. Now that we're trying to live decent, honest, unselfish lives, we're really alive. Life has a new meaning for us so that we can really enjoy it. We feel we're some use in the world. We're on the right side of the fence instead of on the wrong side. We can look to the world in the face instead of hiding in alleys. We come to AA to get sober, and if we stay long enough, we learn a new way of living. Am I convinced that no matter how much fun I got out of drinking, that life was never as good as the life I can build in AA. Meditation for the day. I want to be at one with the divine spirit of the universe. I will set my deepest affections on things spiritual, not on things material. As we think, so we are. So I will think of and desire that which will help, not hinder my spiritual growth. I will try to be at one with God. No human aspiration can reach higher than this. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may think love, and love will surround me. I pray that I may think health, and health will come to me. January 21st. AA Thought for the Day. To grasp the AA program, we have to think things out. St. Paul said, they are transformed by the renewing of their minds. We have to learn to think straight. We have to change from alcoholic thinking to sober thinking. We must build up a new way of looking at things. Before we came into AA, we wanted an artificial life of excitement and everything that goes with drinking. That kind of life looked normal to us then. But as we look back now, that life looks exact opposite of normal. In fact, it looks almost abnormal. We must re-educate our minds. Am I changing from an abnormal thinker to a normal thinker? Meditation for the day. I will take the most crowded day without fear. I believe that God is the most with me, and He's controlling all. I will let confidence be in the motif, running through all the crowded day. I will not get worried because I know that God is my helper. Underneath are the everlasting arms. I will rest in them. Even though the day be filled full of things crowding upon me. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may be calm and let nothing upset me. And I pray that I may not let material things control me and choke out the spiritual things. January 22nd. AA Thought for the Day. In the beginning, you want to get sober, but you're helpless. So you turn to a power greater than yourself. And by trusting in that power, you get the strength to stop drinking. From then on, you want to keep sober. And that's a matter of re-educating your mind. After a while, you get so that you really enjoy simple, healthy, normal living. You really get a kick out of life without the artificial stimulus of alcohol. All you have to do is look around at the members of any AA group, and you will see how outlook has changed. Is my outlook on life changing? Meditation for the day. I will never forget to say thank you to God, even on the grayest days. My attitude will be one of humility and gratitude. Saying thank you to God is a daily practice that is absolutely necessary. If a day is not one of thankfulness, the practice must be repeated until it becomes so. Gratitude is a necessity for those who seek to live a better life. Prayer for the day. I pray that gratitude will bring humility. I pray that humility will bring me to live a better life. January 23. AA thought for the day. Alcoholics are people whose drinking got them into a blind alley. They have not been able to learn anything from their drinking experiences. They are always making the same mistakes and suffering the same consequences over and over again. They refuse to admit they're alcoholics, yet they still think they can handle that stuff. They will not swallow their pride and admit they're different from ordinary drinkers. They won't face the fact that they must spend the rest of their lives without liquor. They can't visualize life without ever taking a drink. Am I out of this blind alley? Meditation for the day. I believe that God has all the power. It is His to give and His to withhold. But He will not withhold it from the person who dwells near Him, because then it passes insensibly from God to that person. It is breathed in by the person who believes in God's presence. I will learn to live in God's presence, and then I will have those things which I desire for Him: strength and power and joy. God's power is available to all who need it and all who are willing to accept it. Prayer for the day. I pray I may get myself out of the way so that God's power may flow in. I pray that I may surrender to that power. January 24th. AA thought for the day. Alcoholics who are living in a blind alley refuse to be really honest with themselves or with other people. They're running away from life, and they won't face things as they are. They won't give up their resentments. They're too sensitive and too easily hurt. They refuse to try to be unselfish. They still want everything for themselves. And no matter how disastrous experiences they have had with drinking, they still do it over and over again. There's only one way to get out of that blind alley, and that way of living, and that's to change your thinking. Have I changed my thinking? Meditation for the day. I know that the vision and the power that I receive from God are limitless. As far as spiritual things are concerned, but in temporal and material things, I must submit to limitations. I know that I cannot see the road ahead. I must just go on one step at a time, because God does not grant me a longer view. I am in uncharted waters, limited by my temporal and spatial life, but unlimited in my spiritual life. Prayer for the day. I pray that in spite of my material limitations, I may follow God's way. I pray that I may learn that trying to do His will perfect freedom. January 25th. AA thought for the day. We used to depend on drinking for a lot of things. We depended on drinking to help us enjoy things. It gave us a kick. It broke down our shyness and helped us have a good time. We depended on drinking to help us when we felt low physically. And if we had a toothache or a hangover, we felt better after a few drinks. We depended on drinking to help us when we felt low mentally. If we'd had a tough day at work, or if we had a fight with our loved one, or if things just seemed against us, we felt better under the influence of alcohol. For us alcoholics, it got so that we depended on drinking for almost everything. Have I gotten over that dependence of drinking? Meditation for the day. I believe that complete surrender of my life to God is the foundation of serenity. God has prepared for us many mansions. I do not look upon that progress and promise as referring only to the afterlife. I do not look upon this life as something to be struggled through in order to get the rewards of the next life. I believe that the kingdom of God is within us, and we can enjoy eternal life here and now. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may try to do God's will. I pray that such understanding, insight, and vision shall be mine, as shall make my eternal life, here and now. January 26th, AA Thought for the Day. As we became alcoholics, the bad effects of drinking came more and more to outweigh the good effects. But the strange part of it is that no matter what drinking did to us, loss of our health, our jobs, our money, and our homes, we still stuck to it and depended on it. Our dependence on drinking became an obsession. In AA, we found a new outlook on life. We learn how to change from alcoholic thinking to sober thinking, and we find out that we can no longer depend on drinking for anything. We depend on a higher power instead. Have I entirely given up that dependence on drinking? Meditation for the day. I will try to keep my life calm and unruffled. This is my great task, to find peace and acquire serenity. I must not harbor disturbing thoughts, no matter what worries, fears, or resentments I may have. I must try to think of constructive things until calmness comes. Only when I am calm can I act as a channel for God's Spirit. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may build up instead of tearing down. I pray that I may be constructive and not destructive. January 27th. AA Thought for the Day. Alcoholics carry an awful load around with them. What a load lying puts on your shoulders. Drinking makes liars out of all alcoholics. In order to get the liquor we want, we have to lie all the time. We have to lie about where we've been and what we've been up to. When you are lying, you are only half alive because of the fear of being found out. When you come into AA, and get honest with yourself and with other people, that terrible load of lying falls off your shoulders. Have I gotten rid of the load of lying? Meditation for the day. I believe that in the spiritual world, as in the material world, there is no empty space. As fears and worries and resentments depart out of my life, the things of the Spirit come in to take their places. Calm comes after a storm. As soon as I am rid of fears and hates and selfishness, God's love and peace and calm can come in. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may rid myself of all fears and resentments, so that peace and serenity may take their place. I pray that I may sweep my life clean of evil, so that good may come in. January 28th. AA thought for the day. What a load hangovers put on your shoulders. What the terrible physical punishment we have all been through. The pounding headaches, the jumpy nerves, the shakes and the jitters, hot and cold sweats. When you come into AA and stop drinking, that terrible load of hangovers falls off your shoulders. What a load of remorse puts on your shoulders. That terrible mental punishment we've all been through. Ashamed of the things you've said and done. Afraid to face people because of what they might think of you. Afraid of the consequences what you did when you were drunk. What an awful beating the mind takes. When you come into AA, that terrible load of remorse falls off your shoulders. Have I gotten rid of these loads of hangovers and remorse? Meditation for the day. When you seek to follow the way of the Spirit, it frequently means a complete reversal of the way of the world that you had previously followed. But it is a reversal that leads to happiness and peace. Do the aims and ambitions that a person usually strives for bring peace? Do the world's awards bring heart rest and happiness? Or do they turn to ashes in your mouth? Prayer for the day. I pray that I may not be wearied, disillusioned, or disappointed. I pray that I may not put my trust in the ways of the world, but the ways of the Spirit. January 29th. AA thought for the day. What a load wasting money puts on your shoulders. They say that members of AA have paid the highest initiation fee of any club members in the world because we've wasted so much money on liquor. We'll never be able to figure out exactly how much it was. We not only wasted our money, but also the money we should have spent on our families. When you come into AA, that terrible load of wasted money falls off your shoulders. We alcoholics were getting round-shouldered from carrying all those loads that drinking put on our shoulders. But when we come into AA, we get a wonderful release and freedom. Can I throw back my shoulders and look the whole world in the face again? Meditation for the day. I believe that the future is in the hands of God. He knows better than I what the future holds for me. I am not at the mercy of fate or buffeted about by life. I am being led in a very definite way as I try to rebuild my life. I am the builder, but God is the architect. It is mine to build as best I can under His guidance. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may depend on God, since He has planned my life. I pray that I may live my life as I believe God's want me to live it. January 30th. Aaa thought for the day. A drinking life is not a happy life. Drinking cuts you off from other people and God. One of the worst things about drinking is the loneliness. And one of the best things about AA is the fellowship. Drinking cuts you off from other people, at least from the people who really matter to you. Your family, your coworkers, and your real friends. No matter how much you love them, you build up a wall between you and them by your drinking. You're cut off from any real companionship with them. As a result, you're terribly lonely. Have I gotten rid of my loneliness? Meditation for the day. I will sometimes go aside into a quiet place of retreat with God. In that place, I will find restoration and healing power. I will plan quiet times now and then, times when I will commune with God and arise rested and refreshed to carry on the work that God has given me to do. I know that God will never give me a load greater than I can bear. It is in serenity and peace that all true success lies. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may strengthen my inner life so that I may find serenity. I pray that my soul may be restored in quietness and peace. January 31st. AA thought for the day. Drinking cuts you off from God. No matter how you were brought up, no matter what your religion is, no matter if you say you believe in God, nevertheless, you build up a wall between you and God by your drinking. You know you're not living the way God wants you to. As a result, you have that terrible remorse. When you come into AA, you begin to get right with other people and with God. A sober life is a happy life because by giving up our drinking, we've gotten rid of our loneliness and our remorse. Do I have real fellowship with other people and with God? Meditation for the day. I believe that all sacrifice and all suffering are value to me. When I am in pain, I am being tested. Can I trust God no matter how low I feel? Can I say, Thy will be done, no matter how much I am defeated? If I can, my faith is real and practical. It works in bad times as well as in good times. The divine will is working in a way that is beyond my finite mind to understand. But I can still trust in it. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may take my suffering in stride. I pray that I may accept pain and defeat as part of God's plan for my spiritual growth. February 1st, AA thought for the day. When we think about having a drink, we're thinking of the kick we get out of the drinking, the pleasure, the escape from boredom, the feeling of self-importance, and the companionship of other drinkers. What we don't think of is the letdown, the hangover, the remorse, the waste of money, and the facing of another day. In other words, when we think about that first drink, we're thinking of all the assets of drinking and none of the liabilities. What has drinking really got that we haven't got in AA? Do I believe that the liabilities of drinking outweigh the assets? Meditation for the day. I will start a new life each day. I will put the old mistakes away and start anew each day. God always offers me a fresh start. I will not be burdened or anxious. If God's forgiveness were only for the righteous and those who had not sinned, where would be its need? I believe that God forgives all of our sins if we are honestly trying to live today the way He wants us to live. God forgives us much, and we should be very grateful. Prayer for the day. I pray that my life may not be spoiled by worry and fear and selfishness. I pray that I may have a glad, thankful, and humble heart. February 2nd, AA thought for the day. We got a kick out of the first few drinks before we got stupefied by alcohol. For a while, the world seemed to look brighter. But how about the letdown, the terrible depression that comes the morning after? In AA, we get a real kick, not a false feeling of exhilaration, but a real feeling of satisfaction with ourselves, self-respect, and a feeling of friendliness towards the world. We got a sort of pleasure from drinking. For a while, we thought we were happy, but it's only an illusion. The hangover the next day is the opposite of pleasure. In AA, am I getting real pleasure and serenity and peace? Meditation for the day. I will practice love because lack of love will block the way. I will try to see good in all people, those I like, and also those who fret me and go against the grain. They are all children of God. I will try to give love, otherwise, how can I dwell in God's Spirit, whence nothing unloving can come? I will try to get along with all people, because the more love I give away, the more I will have. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may do all I can to love others, in spite of their many faults. I pray that as I love, so will I be loved. February 3rd. AA thought for the day. By drinking, we escaped from boredom for a while. We almost forgot our troubles. But when we sobered up, our troubles were twice as bad. Drinking had only made them worse. In AA, we really escape boredom. No one's bored at an AA meeting. We stick around after it's over, and we hate to leave. Drinking gave us a temporary feeling of importance. When we're drinking, we kid ourselves into thinking we're somebody. We tell tall stories to build ourselves up. In AA, we don't want that kind of self-importance. We have found real self-respect and honesty and humility. Have I found something much better and more satisfactory than drinking? Meditation for the day. I believe that my faith in God's power can accomplish anything in human relationships. There's no limit to what these two things can do in this field. Only believe and anything can happen, St. Paul said. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. All walls that divide you from other human beings can fall by your faith in God's power. These are the two essentials. Everyone can be moved by these. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may try to strengthen my faith day by day. I pray that I may rely more and more on God's power. February 4th. AA thought for the day. Treating others to drinks gave us a kind of satisfaction. We like to say, "Have a drink on me." But we were not really doing the other person a favor. We were only helping them to get drunk, especially if they happen to be alcoholic. In AA, we really try to help other alcoholics. We build them up instead of tearing them down. Drinking created a sort of fellowship, but it was really a false fellowship, because it was based on our selfishness. We used our drinking companions for our own pleasure. In AA, we have real fellowship, based on unselfishness and a desire to help each other out. And we make real friends, not fair weather friends. With sobriety, have I got everything that drinking's got without the headaches? Meditation for the day. I know that God cannot teach anyone who is trusting in a crutch. I will throw away the crutch of alcohol and walk in God's power and spirit. God's power will so invigorate me that I shall indeed walk on to victory. There is never any limit to God's power. I will go step by step, one day at a time. God's will shall be revealed to me as I go forward. Prayer for the day. I pray that I have more and more dependence on God. I pray that I may throw away my alcoholic crutch and let God's power take its place. February 5th, AA thought for the day. One thing we learn in AA is to take a long view of drinking instead of a short view. When we were drinking, we thought more about pleasure or release that a drink would give us than we did about the consequences that would result from taking that drink. Liquor looks good from a short view. When we look in the package store window, we see liquor dressed up in its best wrappings with fancy labels and decorations. They look swell. But have I learned that what's inside those beautiful bottles is just plain poison to me? Meditation for the day. I believe that life is a school in which I must learn spiritual things. I must trust in God, and He will teach me. I must listen to God, and He will speak through my mind. I must commune with Him in spite of all opposition and every obstacle. There will be days when I will hear no voice in my mind, and when there will come no intimate heart-to-heart communion. But if I persist and make a life habit of schooling myself in spiritual things, God will reveal Himself to me in many ways. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may regularly go to school in things of the Spirit. I pray that I may grow spiritually by making a practice of these things. February 6th, AA thought for the day. On a dark night, the bright lights of the corner tavern look mighty inviting. Inside, there seems to be warmth and good cheer. But we don't stop to think that if we go in there, we'll probably end up drunk. Our money spent and with an awful hangover. A long mahogany bar in the tropical moonlight looks like a very gay place. But you should see the place next morning. The chairs are piled on the tables, and the place stinks of stale beer and cigarette stubs. And often we are there too, trying to cure the shakes by gulping down straight whiskey. Can I look straight through the night before and see the morning after? Meditation for the day. God finds, amid the crowd, a few people who follow Him, just to be near Him, just to dwell in His presence. A longing in the eternal heart may be satisfied by these few people. I will let God know that I seek just to dwell in His presence to be near Him, not so much for teaching or a message as just for Him. It may be that the longing of the human heart to be loved for itself is something caught from the great divine heart. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may have a listening ear, so that God may speak to me. I pray that I may have a waiting heart, so that God may come to me. February 7th, AA Thought for the day. A nightclub crowded with men and women, all dressed up in evening clothes. Looks like a very festive place. But you should see the restrooms of that club in the morning. What a mess. People have been sick all over the place, and does it smell. The glamour of the night before is all gone, and only the stink of the morning after is left. In AA, we learn to take a long view of drinking instead of a short view. We learn to think less about the pleasure of the moment and more about the consequences. Has the night before become less important to me and the morning after more important? Meditation for the day. Only a few more steps, and then God's power shall be seen and known in my life. I am now walking in darkness, surrounded by the limitations of space and time. But even in this darkness, I can have faith. I can be a light to guide feet that are afraid. I believe that God's power will break through the darkness, and my prayers will pierce even to the ears of God Himself. But only a cry from the heart, a trusting cry, ever pierces that darkness and reaches to the divine ear of God. Prayer for the day. I pray that the divine power of God will help my human weakness. I pray that my prayer may reach through the darkness to the ear of God. February 8th, AA Thought for the day. When the morning sun comes up on a nice bright day, we jump out of bed. We're thankful to God that we feel well and happy instead of sick and disgusted. Serenity and happiness have become much more important to us than the excitement of drinking, which lifts us up for a short while, but lets us way down in the end. Of course, all of us alcoholics had a lot of fun with drinking. We might as well admit it. We can look back on a lot of good times before we became alcoholics. But the time comes for all of us alcoholics when drinking ceases to be fun, starts becoming trouble. Have I learned that drinking can never again be anything but trouble for me? Meditation for the day. I must rely on God. I must trust Him to the limit. I must depend on the divine power in all human relationships. I will wait and trust and hope until God shows me the way. I will wait for guidance on each important decision. I will meet the test of waiting until a thing seems right before I do it. Every work for God must meet this test of time. The guidance will come if I wait for it. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may meet the test of waiting for God's guidance. I pray that I will not go off on my own. February 9th, AA Thought for the Day. In the past, we kept right on drinking in spite of all the trouble we got into. We were foolish enough to believe that drinking could still be fun in spite of everything that happened to us. When we came into AA, we found a lot of people like ourselves had fun with drinking, but who now admitted that liquor had become nothing but trouble for them. And when we found that this thing had happened to a lot of other people besides ourselves, we realized that perhaps we weren't such odd ducks after all. Have I learned to admit that for me, drinking has ceased to be fun and has become nothing but trouble. Meditation for the day. The lifeline, the line of rescue, is the line from the soul to God. On one end of the line is our faith, and on the other end is God's power. It can be a strong line, and no soul can be overwhelmed who is linked to God by it. I will trust in this lifeline and never be afraid. God will save me from doing wrong and from the cares and troubles of life. I will look to God for help and trust Him for aid when I'm emotionally upset. Prayer for the day. I pray that no lack of trust or fearfulness will make me disloyal to God. I pray that I may keep a strong hold on the lifeline of faith.